right, good evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Koshersoul. Koshersoul is a nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're really honored to be here with our partners at the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history to present a celebration of Koshersoul, the faith and food journey of an African American Jew. We're joined tonight first by William Watley, who is a 21-year-old living in Chicago and working as a tech recruiter. He grew up as a native Atlantan and attended the congregation Bet Havarim, which is a longtime partner organization of Charis as well. He also taught Hebrew and Judaism in their small community school for 7 years. He has a passion for cooking, gardening, and tending to small animals. And when we were thinking about who would be best to interview Mr. Twitty, his name was the first one that popped into our board members' minds. So it is always wonderful to have young folks involved in these kinds of events. It's a real honor to get to work with William. And of course, we have longed, ever since we first heard about Michael W. Twitty, who is the noted culinary and cultural historian and the creator of Afro Culinaria, the first blog devoted to African American historic foodways and their legacies. We have been fans, as I'm sure y'all have as well. He has been honored by FirstWeFeast.com as one of the 20 greatest food bloggers of all time and named one of the 50 people who are changing the South by Southern Living and one of the 5 cheftivists to watch. Did y'all know if cheftivist was a word? By TakePart.com. Twitty has appeared throughout media, including on NPR's The Splendid Table, and has given more than 250 talks in the United States and abroad. His work has appeared in Ebony, The Guardian, and on NPR.org. He is also a Smith Fellow with the Southern Foodways Alliance, a TED Fellow and speaker, and the first revolutionary in resistance at the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. I love that. What a title. Twitty lives in Silver Spring, Maryland. No. Fredericksburg, Virginia. Oh, in Fredericksburg. Okay, excellent. So thank you all for being here. We encourage you to make yourselves at home. We will have a signing afterwards. But for now, please give it up for Mr. Michael Twitty and William.
Well, here we are. So, yeah. Okay. Does that help? I don't know if it does.
That better?
Okay.
Can everybody hear us? Perfect. Well, welcome.
Okay.
I appreciate you being here.
Likewise. It's interesting. I used to, before the Rona, I used to come here to Atlanta every year for one of two events at the Atlanta History Center, Juneteenth or the Southern Folklife event in the fall. So I had a lot of people come through the kitchen, the antebellum kitchen where I was doing living history interpretation, which often gets misread as reenactment. I'm not reenacting anything. Thank you very much. No, living history interpretation is important because, I call it Passover in practice.
I love that, actually.
If people don't see us in museum spaces or in archival spaces, we lose control over our history.
It's more of a performative thing and less of us controlling the narrative.
Right, and controlling the narrative is very important. And of course, some people come in there with some things that are goofy. Sometimes people come in there with like naivete. It's like, is the fire real? Wait a minute, hold up. It is June, it's Georgia.
No,
I'm cooking, the fire, I'm dying, I hear the fire isn't real. Guys, come on, what's going on with you? And then, do you really EF that? I mean, the distrust for cast iron, amazing. It's just like,
it's because no one knows how to clean it.
Oh, but it's the idea that because we're out in a kind of a rustic environment, which really isn't that rustic, because you can see the towers behind us that cost probably like $3,000 a month to rent an apartment, right? It's like, it's just this idea that must be dirty. I'm just like, wait a minute, hold up. You there eating Teflon at home every day. But you, okay.
Have non-stick inside of
Non-stick
your body.
inside your body.
And you're afraid to eat the one that
kinda-
actually
what do they
tastes
call
good
them?
when you cook at it.
Right, BPH what are they called? So I'm just like, it's amazing, but this community has been very interesting because, of course, Rabbi Ruth Abba Schmagder, Rabbi Joshua Lesser, Sandra Lawson, all of whom have played a very great role in my personal development in the past couple years. And just there's so many good people. So all the virtual folks, hi, I see you. I know that Marta is not the kindest.
I was trying to explain to Michael that Marta won't take you downtown, really. Like, and you can't park down here, really, either. So, to all the digital folks, I appreciate you watching.
Yes, absolutely. And, we'll get the memo out. But I'm also glad to talk to another Jewish person of African descent. One of the things that I learned in the course of writing Koshersoul is I really wanted to write I wanted half of this book to be a one-stop manual memo for everybody who's like, huh? Because there's so much history,
For Black and Jewish people? Yes.
For Black and Jewish people, and for the fact that, we just simply don't talk about
The intersect?
the intersect of those two in terms of having its own history, it's like you get these little pieces, little mosaic pieces, and you never get one complete, consistent narrative.
And if I can add on to that,
Sure.
I was telling Michael beforehand, I'd like to tell you guys, earlier this week a friend of mine had told me a story where she had seen somebody with Hebrew tattooed on their body, and she asked them, are you Jewish? And it was a Black dude, and he goes, no, I'm African American. And that's just such a common notion everywhere, like that it's one or the other. People don't understand Judaism and how people don't understand Judaism, period, in the story. Like, they don't understand that you can be both. Like, it is not a thing that is, like, mutually exclusive.
No, they don't understand that Judaism is not a religion. Judaism is a religious civilization of the Jewish people. That doesn't, I don't know if you ever get this when you kind of like out yourself as Jewish, but it's like.
And I hate that you have to use the words outing yourself
right?
as Jewish.
It's like, it's right there. It's like, it's like, okay, my Jewish identity is not about covenants and prophecies and messiahs. It's nothing to do with any of that. I'm sure that's important to somebody.
Yeah, not me.
But not me. And for most Jews, it has nothing to do with the everyday
practice of being Jewish.
Right.
It's about getting out and making the world a better place on a base level.
It's about tikkun olam on whatever level. It's for some people, it's about the mitzvahs. It's all these things, and furthermore, like, Jewish peoplehood is very complex. It's never been people have some purity about it. No Jew in history ever stooped someone who wasn't Jewish.
I mean, no, I 100% agree, and I can say that because that's how I get all my jobs. It's very beneficial.
I mean, it's like it's as if, I guess some of the same kind of thing as goes when people have their DNA, genetic genealogy stuff done, because the cooking gene is all about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it amazed me. I was like, oh, we're Latino. We're going to do our DNA reveal. Why am I part Arab? Why am I part Middle Eastern? Okay, hold up, baby. Do you realize that those Spanish people that you come from were basically under the influence of North Africans, West Africans, Moorish people, Arabs, Berbers, for almost 1,000 years? Mm-hmm. What do you think happened in 1,000 years? Or when they were interviewing people who were Greek on the different ancestry programs. And they're like, but I'm part Turkish. Surprise! I'm just like, yeah.
Your people didn't stay in the same place forever.
Right, and that's what happens during war, conflict, trade, etc. And so Jews are no different. Of course, the thing about Jews is wherever we've been, we look like the people we've been around. How did that happen? That it just magically, we just morphed into Persians, into Chinese, into Indians, into Ethiopians, into Poles. And
that's what this one is getting into, right?
Absolutely. And just the fact that how could you So I'll give you the 1 minute pastiche, right? To understand there was a synagogue run by enslaved black people in Suriname in the 18th and 19th centuries. To understand that Zumbi, who was the leader of Palmares, which was the first African independent state in the New World, even before Haiti, in Brazil, welcomed Jews and Muslims who were fleeing the Inquisition, who were in Brazil already. Said there would be freedom of religion in my kingdom. The fact that there were black people who were Jews in Renaissance Italy and Amsterdam. The fact that the first black Jewish person recorded in American history is Solomon, the mulatto Jew. And they misspelled Jew, by the way.
Just out of curiosity. Oh.
And you know how we know he exists? Because of a police record. The first time we appear is profiling. And what is he arrested for? Profaning the Christian Sabbath by walking.
Walking? The one that everyone had to do?
Yeah, but not to church. Conducting regular business. Where his Shabbat was the day before, right?
He didn't violate his.
Didn't violate his. But just the idea that you were what and you were how?
He was walking while black. And
you're walking while black on our Sabbath, right? There goes that Christian nationalism. But I mean, the very fact that that's our Kunta Kinte is weird. It's not just weird. It's you shrug your shoulders and go, okay, I guess that's what it is. What else did I expect?
Are you trying to change the narrative with the story, just out of curiosity?
Absolutely. Because, first of all, people don't even know those people existed. And the problem is, I really did want to write like a whole ass book within a book where we talked about these things, right? The problem is that how could I do that but also tell a personal story?
Is that where
and tell a food story?
Okay.
So I had to sort of like give teasers and say that part of that history hasn't been written yet. It's going to take a lot more than just me. It might take an anthology or something like that. But the bottom line is we need to know these histories because they challenge what we know about what it means to be black, what it means to be Jewish, what it means to be American. And I mean American as in the United States, but also American as in the Americas. And it also challenges what we know about how identities form. Because if people think that we were just locked in Africa and nowhere else until somebody came to take us away, or that Jews were only in their own little communities and there was no intermixing and there was no commerce, no nothing, then they're sadly mistaken about both people's history. Let me give you a little drop. So many years ago, I was in the Walters Art Gallery. I think it was 2015. And there was an exhibit and that's in Baltimore, and it was an exhibit about the African presence in Renaissance Europe. And there's this big, beautiful painting. And the subtitle was The Ghetto of Lisbon. So it's this panorama painting. The middle of the painting excites you because it's a black knight. You never see that.
Like on a horse and
on
everything?
On a horse, and his insignia and the sword, and
it's amazing.
He's well dressed, and it's like, wow. And the other people in the painting are either obviously of African descent, or they are lighter skinned, but have a yellow badge. What's the yellow badge?
Oh, for those that don't know, the yellow badge marks that you are Jewish in pretty much every version of the part where the Jews are persecuted in the country they go to.
So before there was a yellow star, there were these yellow badges. And this picture is crowded with people. It's not like a handful of people. And every manner of everything is going on in this painting. And it's just like, okay, so not only were we there, present, but we were living and existing.
And had our own ghetto, our own neighborhood.
Our own ghetto. But who was living in that ghetto? The Africans and the Jews together. And once you see that, you go, there is an entire base of knowledge we were never taught.
The story was hidden.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if it was just out of curiosity. Was it done actively? Was it actively hidden away just because it was two groups of people that didn't want to?
It's the same like we don't hear about black people in Ireland.
No.
Like the number of narratives that I've seen of black immigrants from Ireland during the potato famine and before, there's a lot of them. And you're like, wait, hold up, okay. And they all kind of have the same bent of the disbelief on the part of Americans. Like, how was this? These were Gaelic-speaking black people coming from Ireland who immigrated to America, who had no clue that when they got there, they were really going to be black. Right?
I like that you have the divider too. Is when you get to America, that's when you find out that you are black.
Right, not just, like Brother Olatunde, who became the fastest man in Ireland, right? In Irish history. No, we talking about, the learning that, I'm really different. And okay, so there's the answer to our question. There's the answer to our question. Why don't we hear about these narratives? Because they reveal something really ugly about us.
I'm being black and Jewish it's a struggle to find that positive light, and I like that you made these books to actually give the positive light to it, because it's a lot of bad. It is a lot of bad all the time, and it's hard to divide it out. And I kind of want to move towards the book just a little bit. Sure. I have to ask about the cover, because I know for people who follow Michael on Instagram, I know that you've seen these before, because every single Passover, they're right there. And every single Shabbat that he can, I know that they're right there. The rainbow challahs. I love them so much with the sprinkles and everything. Is there any significance?
So I want to, before people even open the book, I want them to understand something, that these chalot are different colors. One is colors of African liberation, another one is like a pride challah, another one's like the Israeli flag, or it could be the talit. Another one is kind of like all the different parts together. It's a braid, indivisible, whole, all together, not separated, together. And they represent different parts of me. And of course, the one that's really, really me is this one in the back that has all the different, from the rainbow sprinkles to African liberation colors to the colors of the talit, etc., all in one. My husband did this for me. I really wanted to have an image on the book that told a story. What's the cooking gene? I'm outside of a kitchen, historic kitchen in Somerset Place Plantation in North Carolina. That was taken with one of those antique cameras.
Oh, I love that.
So this one, I wanted to show me, of course, also, books, from cookbooks to prayer books, good catch. Cookbooks to prayer books, a Shabbat candle, a talit, African fabric, all the, just all the different symbols.
It's the identity.
The identity and the authenticity of who I am.
I love this so much. And the joy candle, everything is great. And I mean, you're the cooking man. Like, just that's what you are. That's how I know you. It's what drew me to you, because I was studying hospitality, and I was like, this guy's black and Jewish, and he's writing cookbooks. Like, I have to get in and know him. So tying in all the recipes and everything to the book I just want to know your thought process behind that. Like, did you want to tie something that people could actually do to get into the story, or what's the reasoning behind it?
So the last thing are the recipes. The last thing. Because they're not the most important thing. I shudder when I go to events and people will ask me questions like, so how do I make such and such better? I don't know. I can't tell you. Listen, I'm one of those cooks where you just, you like you talked about your aunt of blessed memory. You have to watch, you have to listen, you have to absorb. It's not a one-time thing. And by the way, it's not technical. It's vibrational. Heard it in a word. It's vibrational.
I taught in a culinary class in high school, and like one of my biggest things was when people would just pull out all the teaspoons and tablespoons for all their seasoning. I'm like, just season it. Just season it. I know you know how to do it. I know that you do, because I've seen you make this before.
But you know, this is the thing though. That's Western versus other.
Heard that.
You know, we don't. I mean, is there a technique? A technique? Oh my God. Really? A technique? Yes, there are, but it's not. I don't know how to tell this to people. You have to kind of like know all the options. What if one doesn't work one day? What if the weather, what if the climate isn't okay? You know, when you bake, you have to be very aware of humidity. You have to be very aware of the outside climate, the indoor climate. It's not the air, not just the temperature, but what's living in it.
Moving from Georgia to Chicago, I can tell you the way I cook is different because, like,
Oh yeah.
the bread it's just different. It doesn't rise the same way.
Imagine if you'd gone to Denver or Boulder. I mean, all that kind of stuff is important to think about. Seasonality is important. What's regionally available is important. And also just the feeling. You know, we can get into that real quick. So the recipes in the back, there are about 50 of them, plus there's some more scattered in the text. And I didn't want to do just a cookbook because cookbooks, guess what? Cookbooks are not that remunerative. They don't pay off like people think they do. They just, you don't just write, everybody loves you. And guess what happened with cookbooks? Cookbooks end up at the bargain bin at Michael's or something.
I mean, the recipe ends up online.
Real fast. Right, and the recipe ends up online. So who you did that for?
Exactly.
Who did you do that for? Where does that recipe really end up? And of course, baby, don't even do it for New York Times. But I don't know if you remember, but when I did the thing for New York Times, those people could not wait to change what I wrote.
Really?
That's how they do. And you put a recipe up there in New York Times, and all of a sudden they want to be like, well, I use so-and-so's recipe, and they put da-da-da-da-da, and I changed this. Baby, why are you talking?
Why did y'all ask me?
Just go, guess what? Go write a blog, go do what you need to do over there, and leave my recipe alone. Ain't got nothing to do with you. Don't you profane my grandmother's stuff like way.
So from the sounds of it, it does not sound like you classify this as a cookbook by any means.
Oh, absolutely not. It's a food memoir, and it's a conversation with recipes. And the reason why I'm that technical is because, if I was going to do a cookbook, first thing I had to contend with the fact is that people would go to it and go, oh, this must be definitive. I don't want my recipes to speak for what you want to do in your kitchen, okay?
Heard that.
I want everybody, the recipes that are sampled here, like for example, Rivka Campbell from Toronto, she has Jamaican rice and peas. It's kosherized Caribbean. But I wanted people to understand that, within Black Jewish spiritual movements and communities, a lot of folks are vegan and vegetarian.
Yes.
That's a big part of it, which goes right along with some of the things that we saw from the Nation of Islam and other movements at the same point. Dietary stuff was a big thing in Black liberation and spiritual movements that came about at the same time. So there's not one that doesn't have a sort of a component of what they believe to be better eating or spiritual eating. That's one part. The other part is there are African Jewries. Ethiopia, the Limba, other communities. I included some of their stuff. The cooking of Black women in the Deep South for Ashkenazi families. Atlanta was very important for that. Some of those recipes are in there. But also the cooking of Black Jews from Ghana, from the Caribbean, from the South, and other places where things are not obviously going to be an easy transition from treif to kosher.
Exactly.
So for example, Naphtali, he's from Ghana. He makes shitor. He makes Ghanaian food on the regular for his family. And I was like, for somebody like me who's African American of a lot of Ghanaian descent,
mm-hmm.
and who's been to Ghana, it was really beautiful and impressive to see the ways that he imparts to his children, who are part white, who are part Ashkenazi, what that means to him to be American
and
Jewish and African immigrant and all of the above. So shitor, for example, is the Ghanaian hot condiment.
Okay. What's it made of traditionally?
Shrimp and ground fish and other stuff, and onions and hot peppers, a lot of hot peppers. So how do you do that?
Yeah, because that's like very like the fishy flavors.
Very specific and and must have. So how do you do that? So let's break this one thing down. So kashrut, some people, particularly in Naphtali's community, not only would you not eat shellfish, point blank, but you also wouldn't serve fish with meat. And it's based on a Talmudic reference that talks about the two being a sakana, which means in Aramaic a danger. So some time ago, somebody had this combination together and they just flat out died. We don't know what fish it was and what meat, but somehow it just happened, they just fell out. So from now on, it's our custom, our minhag, that you should never have this. It's a sakana, it's a danger, don't do it unless you want to F around and find out. So there's that. Don't ask me. This is the reason why if you've ever seen Worcestershire sauce, it'll have it's the only time you'll see the term, the hexture that says, "Oh, you fish."
Because it's got both?
Yes, and typically, what do we use Worcestershire sauce on?
Steak?
Meat, steak, right. So the good stuff like Lee and Perrins, which is still kosher, most people would never use it. Most people who practice that way would never use it on meat because it says, "Oh, you fish." But there are other Worcestershire sauces which are dubious, which don't have the anchovies in them. Or, by the way, okay, so this gets really complex really fast. So, if you still have anchovies in it, but they're less than 60th percent, batel bashishim, you can still have it with meat because the volume is less than 60%. But there's other Worcestershire sauces which are kind of like whatever. I call them brown liquid with some salt in it. Somebody spat in it a couple times and said Worcestershire sauce. Then you can have with anything, and they're parv. They're neither meat nor dairy, and they can be eaten with fish, meat, whatever you want. Okay, fine. So, shitor is similar to that in the sense of it's an umami flavored condiment, like sambal, other things like fish sauce, etc.
So does he make it with less?
He makes it with miso.
Interesting.
And seaweed and kelp stuff, and those help get this. And also, you can't use magi. I use magi, but I use halal magi. I don't have a glot kitchen. I should totally admit that right now. But I don't. But I mean, if you use halal magi, and it's not really, doesn't really have meat in it. No, it's not technically hextured as par. Everyone, okay, fine, whatever. But it's not gonna break your kashrut really. I'm not that kind of person that really has that kind of strictness in that direction. But I guess the point is that so he uses this. We already have like 1 billion kosher bouillons and broths, whatever. That plus the miso plus the seaweed plus other stuff means he gets a 90% accuracy shitor.
And you can actually serve it to his family.
Yeah, or his parents, people from his community, and they don't think different of it. And so, I told you the lamb bacon, for example.
Yes.
Is really important.
And that just because like I grew up in the South, so when I was reading originally, like the first time I heard of you was kosher soul food. Like it was just like hearing that, I was like, how do you do that? It's all got bacon.
Well, the thing about it is that it's very recent in our culinary history that we have a lot of an excess of pork in the food. But way back in the day, that wasn't really an option because you had these huge hogs that you had to break down, had to last a year for big families.
Mm-hmm.
That was little.
It was not.
Right. It wasn't
feasible.
practical. It wasn't feasible. So, but also we're also living post, as I said, all of these dietary things. So the whole NOI, Nation of Islam, and then Orthodox Islam, no pork thing, escaped the black Muslim community. A lot of people went for the no pork thing. So the smoked turkey thing, right? We've already been living through some of those cultural and dietary changes, so they're really not that big of a surprise. It wasn't a big sell it wasn't a big to do. It was already part of the culture. And so now we have like these hoity-toity things like about lamb bacon, kosher lamb bacon, right? I get mine from Grow and Behold. But like, yeah, it works. It works really nice, especially in like collard greens. But the best one of all is baked beans.
How do you do it?
Oh my God. I hadn't had real baked beans in a long time. And I'm not really like a baked beans fiend either. It's really like a 3 time a year thing for me, if that. But when they're really good, they're really good. And it's not the baked beans they eat in England, for God's sakes. Oh, gross.
You're not a fan of the
I
bangers?
was so upset.
Or is it the bangers and the mash? Which one is?
You know how they do. They do sausage and a
Sausage, tomato,
and the burnt
toasted,
tomato and
yep.
the egg in it, and then the toast, and then they have that sea of just Heinz baked beans that's just been opened and reheated for like 2 seconds. Then they put it on pizza sometimes. No, ma'am.
About the real baked beans?
No, the real baked beans, sugar.
Yep.
Mustard, other good stuff, and onion, and of course bacon, right?
And that's the thing. That's what my aunt, like, who I was telling you earlier, I wanted to get all the recipes from. Like, she put bacon in everything. It was bacon fat. Even if it wasn't bacon itself, it was bacon fat because that's how she got that type of flavor in.
Right. And so I guess in kosher soul cooking, not in one version of it, because remember we talked about there are many different versions. Mm-hmm. If you are a meat eater and if you do hear those, every now and then we can do this. And I always want to emphasize that. It's not a prescription to every single day eat unctuous amounts of fat. No, it's not. That's not how we work. We roll. The game is, in traditional Sephardi Mizrahi cooking, olive oil is the most important thing.
I know.
Ashkenazi, chicken fat and goose fat and duck fat is very important. The duck fat is more recent, but definitely chicken fat and goose fat, schmaltz. And then, of course, you have African American, you have fish or meat-based smoked savory umami flavor.
To try to get that.
Yes. And West Africa, it's all dried fish and smoked fish and the crab and shrimp. Like, it's amazing. Like, you go to the market in West Africa in Benin, and there's like smoked crab and stuff like that. But of course, that doesn't help me out. But just having all those flavors and saying, okay, what's going to work together? Sometimes they don't work together. What can work here, what can work there is very important.
So when you were writing the book, did you work your way backwards? Like, did you start with a dish and then try to figure out, like, where it's coming from, why they're doing this thing? Or was it more of like where the diaspora took people and you're trying to?
No, I'm completely ashamed. Because I got to tell you, like, the recipes and the menus, like menus for Juneteenth, for a cookout, there's menus for Sigid, which is an Ethiopian Jewish holidays, menus for Hanukkah and Shabbos and Pesach, all that. Stuff that I would eat. I'm ashamed of that because I'm just like, you really just was like, this is what I want to do. And there's like a lot of menus and recipes. And also, one thing I tried to do was include recipes from other people's books.
Heard that.
And not the recipe, I'm sorry, but the reference. Mm-hmm. So I explicitly tell the reader, hey, not everything you need is going to be found in this book. I would like you to go buy something by Rabbi Gil Marks of blessed memory, or Joe Nathan, or Marcy Cohen Ferris, or Bryant Terry, or Sweet Potato Souffle, or any number of Black, Jewish, or other Palestinian, other cookbook authors, and include that in your recipes, or things as simple as like a watermelon and feta salad, which you can look up online and play around with whatever you want, so that they would have a larger diversity. I'm not a big fish person, so I felt a cringe factor. I was like, there's not enough fish recipes in here, but then I would tell people online, I was like, look, y'all can make it work. You're a pescatarian, you can do the work, you can do the homework. I don't have to do everything for you. But that's another thing about the cookbook thing is people tend to want, especially nowadays, worlds into themselves, one-stop shop cookbooks.
Oh yeah, and I mean, so in the last year I was telling you about my health issues. I had to go pescatarian for a little bit, and that's just for health stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing that I started doing. Like, you have to incorporate multiple types of cookbooks to get that together. So that's what this is kind of where you're coming from and approaching all these recipes. It's like you're piecing it together and like using other people's stuff. It's not just going to be you're not going in just full force like this is the cookbook. Like this is everything that you need. You're going in like it needs to be a collaboration.
And you're also talking about like, I wanted diversity. So I have Black Canadian, I have Cape Verdean, I have Brazilian, just to show the people, I didn't even think about it until it was all over. Just show people the vast array of representations of what it means to have this African and Jewish narrative together, right? Experience, right?
I will say it is an experience. It's something I can't relate to a lot of. There's only a handful of people I can relate to. Like when I was reached out to do this event, I was like, oh, it's Michael Twitty. That's exciting. I already knew you. Like I knew you, and I've introduced you at events before. Because of the democracy of the internet, we're able to know each other in ways that we might not have before, but also enables us to sort of like get across to people. I guess we also have to deal with our own weird kind of anti-Semitism. It's very weird. Very weird, because it's like, I mean, it's very weird. I have to explain to like a group of people who are talking to me about soul food and like everything about being in the South and everything, and then at the end I'm like, yeah, I'm Jewish, and it's like taken aback just for half a second. They're like, oh, wait, what? How does that work? And like, that's the question. How does that work? How does that work is the problem. Exactly. It's like I shouldn't have to explain how that works. It's earlier today on NPR, I was like, so since when do people walk up to Black Christians or Black Muslims and go, how did you get here? And if you answer that question, that's deep. That's real deep. Because, should I spell it out for people? I mean, go for it. So, okay, how do the vast majority of Africans in the New World come to Christianity? Mm-hmm. It starts actually on the other side of the Atlantic, at Cape Coast in Elmina, when you were getting on the boat and they would throw buckets of seawater on you, blessed by a priest, and says, good luck. How do they become Muslim? I have a lot of respect for Christianity and Islam, but it's not always peaceful. It's not always, it's not always liberation. But you want to ask me, how did you get here? How did you get here? Sometimes it's about anti-blackness. I look at people and I say, did you convert? Were you born Jewish? Did you convert is my least favorite question on earth. Especially for you. How do you deal with that? I've led so many talks on how I deal with being asked this question. It is a slow conversation because I realized that I can't just be quick and easy and say my mom's Jewish. I can't just say my mom's Jewish. It's not enough for people. Like, they are like, so are you biracial? And it opens up so many other doors of questions, and it shouldn't. Because I am biracial, and a lot of people can tell from a distance, but that shouldn't matter for being Jewish. But you might, and the thing about it is, though, we both know that you might not be. And that's the thing. Like, there are Jewish people. What if your mother was the person who was you? Exactly. Or not at all, and you just happen to be, that's how that works. Or somebody put a comment on one of the Instagram things that I was tagged on. All the comments are really positive. I get down to comment 40-something, and it goes, that's the mistake, going down to comment number 40. Well, lots of Negroids have converted to Judaism. Hold up, for a Negroid. I like the D at the end. Right. Really? The D at the end, right? Negroid. Negroid. It's not just Negro. Right. Negroid. I mean, dang. But like, the whole idea of conversion is very interesting because, again, people don't know their history. When I was looking at stuff for the Cooking Gene, I was in the archives in South Carolina and Columbia, and I was like, okay, Registry of Free Negroes. You could not believe how many pages of Cohens and Levies there were.
Like, this is all around Charleston. And even Spanish and Portuguese sounding names that were Sephardic, and German sounding that were Ashkenazi. And it's just like, yeah, this is the thing. There are still people in Jamaica with the same kind of names. It's like, but collectively, we've never really addressed this. Not just the issue of Jews and enslavement in the New World, which is very complicated. There's a beautiful book called Once We Were Slaves, where these are the biracial children of this family who are emancipated and then sent to New York to live completely different lives as white passing, would rather swarthy, Jews. And then they have children, and then people forget that, oh yeah, you're a quarter black. And it's just like, okay, there's another level to that. There are people like our friend Anthony, what is Anthony's last name? My brain right now.
Scared me for a second. That's my dad's name. I was like,
he is, huh?
Russell?
Russell, thank you, perfect. Thank you.
I'm here. I'm literally.
What?
Anthony.
Brother, don't do that to me.
Tell me about Anthony.
Dear brother Anthony Russell. I had a Rona moment, bruh. I was like, Rabbi Mike's husband. Yeah, da-da-da.
I'll take it.
Beautiful gentleman, I should say. Need to get to Massachusetts. But like when you said the phrase about, I'm not ashamed to say I'm a Jew by choice, a convert. This is what it is. And we need more of that as well.
Yes, I mean, there shouldn't be any shame in that. It's a decision you made.
All the above is important.
I mean, to be honest with you, like, converting's hard.
Converting can be hard.
It can be hard. It can be hard. You have to study, though. Like, regardless,
yes,
you have to learn.
Especially for Jews of color who are in the Orthodox community. I mean, I had an Orthodox Beit Din myself. But, I mean, it wasn't, I was also, integrated into my congregation before that happened. Mm-hmm. Whereas other people, they got to relocate, they got to move, they got to do this, they got to do all these, jump through all these hoops, especially in communities where redlining and other things have kept blacks and Jews as whites and blacks separate.
Yes.
So there is that. But there's a completely other element to this.
I was going to say, you're diving into the American divide now.
Yes, and that's why I can't speak for every situation. Like, another issue that we tend to face is that we're put on this like test. How loyal are we? When it comes to issues of Israel-Palestine, it's how loyal are you? And I refuse to talk about it most of the time, other than the fact that I want, justice for everybody and I want peace. And it's because I've had people come into my DMs going, you don't help us enough. What the hell does that mean? Why aren't you saying more? What good? Oh, the best one, what good are you? Heard that 3 times.
What good are you?
What good are you? Why do we even have you in the family, in the club, if you're not going to be,
advocating and voicing
an advocate in a certain way?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'll be real with you. When I went to Israel for the first time, it was birthright and it was AIPAC. But watch this, I wasn't that kind of person. So you never heard them mention my name again. So I mean, I lived that life for 2 seconds.
No, yeah,
and it wasn't a very friendly space for black people.
I've yet to go.
I mean,
because I've heard these stories, and I'm not trying to be funny. It's like because I've heard these stories. It's not going to keep me from going by any means. Don't get me wrong. I have until I'm like 32, but like I didn't want to go when I was 18. I didn't know enough about the world yet. And I felt like that.
That particular, political group, had their own birthright trip. I was invited to go. I jumped at the opportunity because it was the first thing. Back then it was 26, and I was 25 going on 26. And I'm not really going to make a big to-do of it other than to say that at the end of the day, why am I not there? It's not just because of my own personal conviction. It's because of their relationship to black people. You literally had to become, a black conservative of a certain type to be cool. And I was never going to be
That's
that.
not who you are.
That's definitely not who I am. And I can't rub elbows with people who hate me
No,
as a black queer man.
no. I mean,
Like, nah.
moving from the south up to the north, I mean, down here I know where I'm allowed. I know where I want to be as
Right.
a black Jewish individual, and I don't know much about Chicago yet. I don't, and it's different. It's different navigating that space. It's hard to know where you're allowed to be.
Okay. So now that you said that, and now that Brother Russell's here, Svi Mordecai, let me put it like this. I think when I saw you, I was doing it with Bechol Hashon out there, and I was talking to these kids. The first time I was around a plurality of Jewish kids of color, especially those of African descent. The problem is that they were like, well, talk to these kids. Okay, great, I'll talk to the kids. They were really teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was what I didn't understand was this. Their world as Jewish kids of color was not the same as the world I was familiar with. So here we have, listen, I'm talking this East Coast, South stuff to these kids who are from Berkeley and Oakland and San Jose and San Francisco and San Mateo. And
They have no idea what you're talking about.
well, because their world was two mommies.
Yeah, they're fine already.
Their world was, of course we bring a shopping bag everywhere.
No one's gonna stop it. No one's gonna ask them how are you Jewish.
Of course, half our family is vegan. I mean, no, they're not going to be under the same sort of rubric. Their challenges are very different, and so I'm glad I had that kind of rough edge, because it taught me that you really have to know, like, what people navigate geographically, culturally.
And that's what pushed you towards this type of wanting to tell this
Yeah,
story.
because it's not all the same everywhere. It's like when I went to Ole Miss and gave my first presentation there to a huge crowded room, and I learned never to say the N-word at Ole Miss. And it wasn't me being, foolish. It was like I was quoting something, but it was perfectly silent to the students. And then I thought, oh damn, what did I just do? And then I remembered, what you just did was you know the rules. Now you're in Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina even, you might be able to get away with that. But once you hit South Carolina and Tennessee and
Mississippi.
Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, etc., Arkansas, don't you say that N-word even in historical context. Not to a mixed crowd of people. Because this is Ole Miss. Half these kids here are dealing with shame, the other half dealing with guilt. This is serious. This is in the walls.
Mm-hmm.
This is in the ground. James Meredith's blood is in the ground. I've met James Meredith. You can't. So I learned there, and then in that space, that space in California, I learned that what I had to say about being black and Jewish wasn't always applicable. That it wasn't always the cultural issues I had to deal with weren't always the same as other people's cultural and political issues, especially when you're talking to younger people. Like, part of me wishes we had done a different kind of dialogue or something. I mean, I don't feel like I failed. I just feel like I didn't get it, and they didn't tell me I didn't get it. They were expecting me to just kind of say something magical,
Something profound.
be the magical Negro and profound, and like I wasn't, magical Negro or profound. I was just kind of like trying to figure out, like, how do I fit into this space?
It's like, how do I teach y'all anything?
How do I teach y'all anything? Because they were
California,
different culture.
Berkeley, like
Black people, which is a whole different thing to me, and not to mention that, but black and Jewish, and also coming from worlds where, even to say the word Jewish practice. Where are you centered? What do Jewish communities do? How are they organized? What's important to them? What are their priorities?
it's a different thing.
It's a different thing.
Does the book approach it that way?
Yeah, I want people to understand that in talking and having conversation with other folks like me and beyond, I want them to know that, we all have these different perspectives, like Charis, Manish Tana, Charis Rishon. you know, he and I have some things in common and some things we don't. I don't tend to stress the conflicts or disagreements, but I do let people speak for themselves. You know, he is third, fourth generation Black and Hasidic. People can't wrap their heads around that. But I promise you when I tell you there have been Black Orthodox Jews in these communities for generations upon generations upon generations upon generations. And just for someone like him,
He's got a completely different story to tell.
completely different story to tell, but coming out of a narrative where just like his pushback is intense. His pushback is extremely intense.
When you say pushback,
So when his reaction to comments on social media from fellow people in the Orthodox community about George Floyd, et cetera, he used a picture of a Klansman with a tallit on. And the words were people's actual comments about Black people from different parts of social media. People didn't like it, but not one word in that image wasn't what people really said.
that's what things people said. That's a real picture. Like,
I mean, I had a lot of people in our communities who felt since the beginning of the last administration, they ran like hell because they were unsafe. And I don't just mean uncomfortable. I mean literally
Unsafe.
like scared. People were really, I mean, I remember the night of the election, there was an image of one college group, and it was our people. And this boy was running around with a Confederate flag on his back with a kippah on. I'm just like, what? I mean,
it's so contradictory.
how can you dive in next to this person? I mean, Jewish peoplehood is very important because it's not just, it falls on all sides. You know, first of all, hey, Black folks, Jews aren't those people over there. There's some of us.
Yep.
Hey, Jews, the Blacks. I hate that. When someone says the Blacks to me, I'm like, okay, you
So
know what?
aggressive.
Shut it down.
The B in it is so
It's
aggressive.
so
It's
aggressive.
always
like that damn D at the end of Negro.
exactly.
And it's just like, no, we're part of you, and we're not just we're not some subcategory.
We are part of
your
you.
Hebrew school teachers. We are your spouses. We are your family. We sign your ketubas.
We've been
we
here
bury
forever.
you. We've been here forever. We're not going anywhere.
I mean, my Devar was about like, I had the story of Sarai, and like there was a slave in it. So of course I wrote my whole thing about it. But like, in the thing they mentioned that he's darker than everybody else, and like that's in the Torah they say it. Like they say he's darker. It's Ezekiel. He's just darker. Like that's just the way it was. And like, that's something I had to talk about because I'm like, he was around. He was there forever. He's in the Torah. It's not like Black people are new. It's not like any of these people in this story were particularly white. This is a story we've been telling forever and ever, and I've been here.
I'm still got that $1 million prize offering to somebody who find me a white person in the Bible, especially the Hebrew Bible. Like, oh well, let's find that. And I don't mean like United States after 1912 white. I mean like y'all know. I mean airplane white. Y'all know what the hell I mean when I say white. But, you know, okay, so on the subject of singing in Yiddish, I didn't know until this gentleman and other people pointed out that there were Black cantors.
I'm so excited for CVH as a potential Black cantor.
There were Black people who would sing Hebrew and Yiddish songs and perform it. And there were Black people. That's another thing. It's not just Black Jews. It's Black people who are quite engaged in the Jewish world.
Yes.
I mean, people who worked in shops, people who, a lot of the forgive the term, Shabbos goys who worked in the communities, especially in the South, Black. In Louisville, Kentucky, they went on strike.
All the Black Jewish.
They were all like little boys and teenage boys who would perform those tasks in the Jewish section of Louisville, and they went on strike, and they were all Black. And so it's like, okay, wait a minute. So we're singing the prayers, we're performing these tasks, we're working in these delis and these butchers shops and the dry goods shops, And, you know, we're creating Old Bay together in Baltimore. And it's just like, how come all of these levels upon levels of black Jewish engagement culturally have gone completely, I don't want to say erased because that's a choice, but for some people erased.
I mean, in the 60s you see a lot of Jewish activism these days, like especially in Atlanta, but like it dissipated for a little bit.
Or before we get to Q&A, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Drive Miss Daisy.
Shot in Atlanta.
For a lot of people, that was their first. Albert Urey's play was the first introduction they had to Southern Jewish life, and you know, based on it's an Atlanta story. But you know, I would talk about it in the book because it was a revelation to me, and I don't shy away from talking about pop culture because you know, when you're marginalized and oppressed, pop culture is very important.
That's where you tell your story.
That's where you tell your story. It's another form of representation. But I mean, for me, I guess the thing that the two scenes that I talk about in the book that really got me, well, three, were one when they're driving on the road and they get profiled by the cop. And he says the words, "Ain't that a sorry sight? A old N-word and a old G woman driving down the road together." And it's just like, that happened all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That happened all the time. Or when Idella, who was the maid, passes away and they're cooking together, but they eat separate places. That's an astounding ass scene. You know, they literally she goes to the dining room table, he goes to the kitchen table, and they say grace and they eat separately. They do everything else together, but that when it comes to eating together, they will not break the code of Jim Crow, even when it's just them two in her house. And of course, when the temple was bombed, which they kind of, in the film, they kind of fudge the dates and times. But when the temple was bombed, she goes, you know, well, what happened? That couldn't have happened. You know, we're safe here. And he goes, no, you're not. And then proceeds to tell her a story about how when he was younger, one of his best friend's father was lynched. And she says, why did you tell me that story? It has nothing to do with me. You know, there's a lot of levels, and I'm glad they went. I mean, I'm glad Urey went there. There's a lot of levels in that play, and then what became the movie adaptation. But you know, some people only saw the subservience, the magical Negro thing, which really wasn't magical. It was just, I remember watching it with my grandmother, who was from Alabama. And to watch those kind of movies with people who, as my grandmother would say, wore the shoe, was very deep. You know, we say triggering. You could feel her, you could just see her. I would watch her chest and her face, like breathing, her hands. Because you could see the things in that movie that made her think back to the 1920s and 1930s when she grew up, and 1940s, and what that was like, and how you had to behave, and what that meant, and the reason why she was never a domestic. I mean, that was a real, for most black women, they did sometime as a domestic. My other grandmother did. But for her and her family, that was not going to be a choice. I think it was because, if I may be blunt, because she was lighter skinned, she was very pretty, and the worry was that she was become a victim of sexual abuse. So her father and her mother would not let their daughters go anywhere near being domestic because it was a very real possibility that that could happen to them. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen to you if you were darker skinned.
No, but
I'm just saying that tragic mulatto thing went up. You know, there were certain things about that part of Alabama and all that stuff that was going on. People had reputations, what they did. So, having said that, it's kind of developing a history that spans all these different narratives we talked about this evening is not easy. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to do, and it's complicated. And But the most important thing you should know about this book and about what we're talking about here, we're talking about lived experience, lived lives. Sounds redundant, but it's not. People have to remember we just exist.
It's a daily life.
It's a daily life. And we do different things. We wear head covers, we don't. We wear tzitzis, we don't. We keep perfectly kosher, we keep Passover perfectly once a year, whatever the case may be. But we are still living Jewish lives, and our black lives matter. So if you left here with nothing else tonight, then those things inbraid in conversation.
I love our
Are
Black
important.
Lives Matter so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so maybe we should do some Q&A.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
don't
say
even
on a-
know what time it is.
I was gonna say on a
I'm
lighter
just like,
note.
y'all just sitting here.
Is it time? All right. Does anybody have any questions?
Like, wow, okay, everybody.
Not at all. I wish we could ask them virtually.
Hi, thank you so much.
Hi.
So interesting. So I'm curious. A lot of the first half of the conversation involved, Michael, you kind of addressing all of these different times and geographies where sort of the received wisdom is there weren't any black people there, when that is not the case at all, right? And so hearing you sort of mention all those different disparate examples, I was thinking a little bit there's this Jewish studies scholar named David Roskis, and he has this idea of a usable past, of a way of looking at past and history, not just to know what happened, but to find something either in the past of your own peoplehood or otherwise that you can bring into the present and embody in some way. And so I'm curious, like, all of these like fascinating different examples that most people have never heard of. It's one thing just to hear you mention that or read about it and go, wow, that's incredible, I had no idea. But I'm curious what, in your mind, what is the next step with that history in particular? How is it usable?
So I think that's a great question, because what happens is, so for example, in my own aesthetics, in my home, you'll find Ethiopian talitot. You'll find, adinkra and other and kente, things from the Jewish community in Ghana, from Sefu Biaso. You'll find kippot with James Baldwin on them, and Zora Neale Hurston. It just so if I can, and one of the things that we like to do, we also like to mine, M-I-N-E, these references for tradition, for custom, for whatever we can, because the idea is, one of the questions that one of my interviewees asked is, what does a black Mesorah look like? Mesorah means tradition, minhagam, practice of law. What does a black Mesorah look like? So if we know these things happen and we can dig a little bit further and ask questions, we can then begin to construct, what's actually usable, how we can actually express these two, the braid of these two identities. So for example, understanding Surinamese food and the Jewish and black influences therewith means that maybe I can make that and tell stories through my table, okay? Maybe it means making cachopa, which is the recipe for in the book from Cape Verde, and tell that story. Maybe it's learning a song or a text or a prayer from a place and incorporating that into my practice to bring these things back to life with the full acknowledgement that we're doing something akin to resurrection. So that's what it is. I mean, I'll take anything I can get. It's like, because we know that when you come from marginalized and oppressed communities, the fracture is real. The breakage, But the bottom line is, there's no sin, sankofa, a Khan tree from Ghana. There's no sin to go back, to retrieve, to retain, to rescue what you need to go forward into the future. Yeah.
And do we have time for another question? Perfect. I think you had your hand up?
I'm going to save my comment for the signing.
Absolutely.
The only comment I want to make is that I think modeling deference, modeling good behavior around our Jews of color is up to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the idea. I love the storytelling. I just think the storytelling is the heart of it all. So I can't wait to be.
Well, thank you. And I will say this on the last note. For a lot of people, I've advocated for the idea that, I understand the curiosity about other people's journeys, but get to know their name first. Say Good Shabbos first. Say Shabbat Shalom first.
Say hello first.
Say hello. And by the way, when they say something to you, don't be like, walking into the synagogue I taught for I don't know how many years, to drop something off and and then do something else. It was a Friday night. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Same to you. Thanks.
Ooh.
I'm like, okay, passive aggressive. Okay. You didn't call me Negroid or anything, but I mean, it just feels so weird because, the things people will say and do, or, one thing I talk about in the book is going to the Library of Congress to get a new reader's pass. And the woman looked me up and down and said, "What are you?" And I said, "I'm black and I'm Jewish." Jewish? You must be Republican too. Wow. She's like, I'm from DC. I never met no black Jews.
You ain't looking hard enough.
You ain't looking hard enough because you're looking at one, and there's been more than one. And so these moments that send people into a state of self-erasure, that's why I wrote this book. Because I don't want those anymore.
Live proud.
Live proud, but also so as people living in this time period in history, but also as Americans. As Americans, we are a Erev Rav of our own. We're a mixed multitude. We're also people whom should be pretty used to, different people, because it's been that way for a minute, and we're no longer these random stories that sort of show a different reality. This is the reality, and we should be grown up about it all and know where we stand. So, anyways, thank you very much for coming. We're intimate in person. This is a big change after a couple of days of down the block kind of nonsense I've been dealing with, but I appreciate all of it, and I want to thank you for being here. Tadat rabah. We'll talk more outside.
Thank you, everybody.